Okay, friends, now we're going to take all the work that we've been doing on this Nearpod and put it to use on this worksheet. And if you notice, I've got the worksheet open, and on the top, I put the 6 steps for figuring out using context clues to figure out unknown vocabulary words. All right, we just reviewed that in the previous slide. In case you forgot, they're right up here at the top. The directions say look at the word in bold, think about the text around it, cross out any words that you think are not going to help you, then think about the clue words you have left, write a word that you think might mean the same thing, and then finally write why you think this is. Okay, so the first sentence that we're going to be looking at is from The Boy Who Loved Words, and it reads like this. While other children busied themselves with bats, nets, and all manner of balls, Selig stayed on the outskirts, always on the periphery, listening and collecting words. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is get rid of some of the words that might not be very useful to us. And I'm going to kind of look at this in big chunks because we have sort of 3 chunks to this sentence. We have the first part, which is here up to the comma, while other children busy themselves with bats, nets, and all manner of balls. That's the first part. Second part is Selig stayed on the outskirts, always on the periphery. I feel like that's the second chunk. And the third chunk is listening and collecting words. Okay, so we know that the other children were doing something. They're playing with balls and bats and sounds like recess to me, nets. But the word that we're looking for is Selig stayed on the outskirts, always on the periphery. So I'm thinking that all the stuff that the other kids were doing was not that important to help us understand this. So I'm going to go to Format up here on my menu, go to Text, go to Strike Through, and I'm just going to strike that out. So that's like a big chunk that we don't have to look at anymore. So Selig stayed on the outskirts, always on the periphery, listening and collecting words. Okay, so we know that I am getting a sense that periphery has something to do with location. And what he was doing there, I don't think is that important. So we're going to cross these words out too. We're going to go to Format Text, strike through. Okay, so now we're looking at Selig stayed on the outskirts, always on the periphery. So I'm going to activate my prior knowledge. And I know that like the outskirts of town are far away from the center of town, right? So while the other kids are playing, it said that Selig stayed on the outskirts, always on the periphery. So I feel like periphery and outskirts might be very similar words, right? He stayed on the outskirts, always on the periphery. So outskirts means like far away from the center of activity, and the center of activity here is other kids playing. So he wasn't near the other kids. And I'm going to activate one more piece of prior knowledge. That word periphery, it sounds a lot like peripheral vision. I know that word. And peripheral vision is the stuff that you can see out of the corner of your eye. It's like almost out of your vision, but it's kind of like right at the edge. So I'm thinking that far away from the center, on the outskirts, maybe the edge. Like it sounds like they're at school because the other kids are playing. Maybe they're at a playground. So maybe uh, the edge of something. I'm going to put that in there. Probably not all caps though. That doesn't work. All right, so the edge of something. So now if I read the sentence again, while other children busied themselves with bats, nets, and all manner of balls, Selig stayed on the outskirts, always on the edge, listening and collecting words. All right, so what made me think this? Outskirts is far from the center of town. So it must be the edge of the playground. And that's how you do it, my friends.